And we are off. Steve, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, how's it going?
All good, all good. So yeah, excited to have you on. I want to talk all about your business. Maybe as a way to just kick things off, why don't you give us just, I guess, elevator pitch doesn't have to be a pitch, but just what is the Uncomplicated Group?
So the Uncomplicated Group is the brainchild of me after many years working for a corporate manufacturing business where we were spending loads of time simplifying the business, working out where we made our money, and then where we could do more of that and kind of de-resource or treat other bits of the business differently that were probably dragging us down or slowing down our growth. And I left that a couple of years ago, seeing that there's a wave of people looking to retire, and that there's businesses potentially for sale because these businesses didn't have much of a succession. Now, these businesses have probably been run a certain way for many years and haven't been through a lot of the kind of like corporate methods and tactics and strategies that I spent so many years learning. So my thinking was, if I could acquire a couple of these businesses and then apply those strategies onto an SME, then maybe it'd be a really cool thing to do. Because not many people are doing it, and obviously for me along the way I get my kicks in acquisitions and doing my corporate stuff, but it's my gig rather than doing it for corporate. So that's the very abridged version. I'm sure we'll get into more detail as we carry on the conversation.
Yeah, and obviously doing a bit of research before this episode. Obviously, you're in the injection moulding business.
Mm-hmm.
What is that to the layman, to the me who doesn't know anything? Like what is that industry all about?
Injection molding is, I'm trying to think of the easiest way to explain it. It's one of those industries where way more stuff is injection molding than you probably realize. There's probably stuff within like 2 feet of where you're sat right now. But basically you're melting down pellets and resins into pushing it into a mold. Is a huge injection molding machine, and then that mold obviously can be any shape, and you can be huge stuff or tiny components, and it's a very broad range of things that you can make, but the real zoomed out view is you're melting plastic, it's being injected into a mold, solidifying, and then it might be that's the finished product, or it might have some secondary operations, printing, welding, or being fit together with something else or something like that. But yeah, vast, huge array. So I could probably spend the whole podcast talking about how molding works, but I won't do that because it will be quite a dull podcast unless you're an injection molding geek like I am.
Yeah, you'll probably blow my head off if we start going into the technicals. But so in simple terms, the materials that are coming into your operation are plastics basically at one end, right? And then they're molded as per whatever the application is, and then they're going out as a part or a component.
Correct.
Okay. And who buys this stuff from you guys?
From us, so I've got 2 businesses. We've got Tech Markets based in Manchester. We primarily sell into the construction industry. So these are fixings, fasteners, spacers, things like that, which are all used on construction. So you go around a site, you'll see our stuff everywhere. Very high volume in every sort of house or build or whatever. There'll be thousands of these components being used. And then the other business, which is Dudley Associates, is got a bit more of a broad spread of customers. So we've got some medical customers. So we sell pieces for, say, like syringes and various medical applications. We've got some consumer products, so various things that you'll see around your house, appliance bits and components there. You name it, very broad spread. But yeah, let's say primarily it's electronics, some medical, some retail products as well. And then I guess like everything in between, very broad.
And are you typically dealing in, you mentioned it's high volume. So are you selling individual pieces? Or are you selling batches of this stuff? How do you typically deliver for the customers?
So in Tech Markets, the first business, it's in the hundreds of thousands and the millions of pieces. So wow. We'll be running our machines for days or weeks, and then it goes out to a distributor who then decants it down into the smaller volumes. On Dudley Associates, it's slightly different. We're more of a smaller batch, kind of funky application, more of a technical injection molder. So we'll use different materials that have got different properties for different end user applications. So there's quite a broad spread. There's thousands of different types of raw material to get thousands of different types of performance. And what we do is we work with the customer to match the design of the product with the type of raw material to get the performance they need. And then it's somewhere in there as well, of course, is working out, excuse me, the equipment needed to do the batch size. But for Dudley Associates, it's generally a much smaller batch size in the hundreds of pieces, sometimes in the sort of tens of thousands, but yeah, very different between the two.
Okay, so you could have anything from like I don't know what is the smallest order size go to, and what is like the largest order size go to?
I don't know, to be honest. Probably the smallest we would do would be 50 parts, maybe 100 parts. Okay. So it might only be in the machine for less than an hour. You might spend more time setting the machine up than you would actually running the product. And then in the longest parts would be, 2 or 3 million components, 5 million components, which would run for a month, for example.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, it's quite an interesting market, like you're saying. Like this, it's used in so many different industries. What I want to understand is from zooming out a bit, out I guess larger than the Uncomplicated Group. How good are we at this? On your LinkedIn, like you talk about the industry, potentially like 1,200 or 1,500 of these types of businesses in the UK. How good are we as as a nation at injection molding? Are we a world leader? Are we middle of the pack? Where do you think?
Oh, it'd be really cool to give us like a mark out of 10, wouldn't it? And compare it to to global. I think many years ago, it was a bigger industry than it is now in the UK. There was a lot of production that went to the Far East because of, I guess, the labour component involved in the manufacture. That I saw somewhere that the UK, I don't think this is just injection molding, but I think it's a whole UK manufacturer, but we've got the lowest number of robots per, I think it was like per pound of revenue or per employee in the whole of Europe. So other countries have adopted automation, not just in molding, just across manufacture, more quickly than we have. So we're probably a bit behind the curve in terms of our productivity versus other countries. And if we're not using robots, then presumably that would mean we're still using manual labor, which of course carries quite a high cost compared to being able to do it in, say, Eastern Europe or in Asia. So I think it'd probably be fair to say there's not that I'm aware of anyway, maybe after this someone will tell me there's like an industry standard of how to grade an industry out of 10. That'd be really helpful. But yeah, I'd say we're on the similar journey of the kind of the automation and modernizing the way we go. On my acquisition hunt, I looked at lots of different companies when I was thinking of what to acquire, and I still saw a lot of the very manual processes, quite a lot of dated machinery and stuff. So there's probably certain pockets of the market where we're behind the curve. So yeah, it'd be, like I say, it'd be really cool to have like an industry standard grade out of 10, and here's the checklist that you need compared to other industries. But I'd say we're definitely not like getting left behind or anything like that. There's definitely a big repatriation drive that we've seen since COVID, where people who were using Far East suppliers, for example, want to shorten their supply chains. So that will put pressure on the industry to invest and be able to keep up with the demands of that. Because we won't be able to scale at the speed of insourcing if we don't have things like automation, because then we'll obviously only be able to move at the speed of our labour growth and being able to employ people. So I think that'll be a good trend for the industry that will kind of force us to catch up with everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, it mirrors, it sounds like it mirrors a lot of different, manufacturing industries or subsectors where, people are having these, or I guess in the last 4 years, right, last 5 years, have thought about, maybe we shouldn't have everything, a million miles away if we're, trying to get stuff done, and that plays into your hands, right, over the long term. I also feel like from maybe a political point of view, like we've had this kind of globalization experiment over our last however many, 40 odd, 50 odd years, where everything, like you say, has been pushed basically to the cheapest markets around the world and completely hollowed out our, I guess, industrial capacities to a certain extent. Do you you feel that coming back or reversing? Do you, I know you're close, just focused on your business, but do you see that trend or maybe not?
Yeah, I think it is there, and I think also there is a trend of people being more aware on the sustainability side, especially in plastics. So there's a lot of negative press that we see in the plastics industry around, the single-use stuff that ends up in a river or in the sea or whatever. But yeah, the counterpoint of that, and that people are bringing their production back home. So we're not thinking there are sustainable plastics from a like usability, but just making it more locally, shorter supply chain, less emissions, and or shipping and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's definitely a trend there. Whether we're doing a good enough job shouting about how good we are at it and how we can help those people like achieve the goals and make the industry more sustainable, I'm not convinced that we're doing probably as much as we should do.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully that pods like this, are actually the way to do that.
Absolutely.
So, that's brilliant. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about next is, again, a huge cost component, but also a kind of critical piece of your strategy at the Uncomplicated Group is going to be like your talent strategy, if you want to use that word, right? Your people, you're recruiting, you're hiring, you're hopefully not firing. How are you thinking about getting talent into your business? I'd imagine like a lot of, I guess non-tech or non-finance, there's not like, and especially if you're in the regions, right? You've got to think about that strategy. How are you thinking about getting people in?
I think it's getting increasingly more difficult. And I think it's something that everyone needs to be spending more time doing. So we really struggle to find technical people. So while I'm out there looking at making acquisitions from retiring owners, because there's more of those than there are buyers, in a similar profile, a lot of the employees are of that age profile as well. So a lot of the skills are leaving the industry at a rate that's faster than new people being trained in college or getting hands-on apprenticeships and stuff. So there's a real risk there from a technical perspective. The way I think about it, I really want to have more people that have come in at the beginning and that have worked and proven like the cultural piece as well as technical. I think if you've got someone who's come in who's young, not only have they learnt the skills inside, but they've learnt to work the way that you want to. I've seen in both businesses I've acquired, I think there isn't like a dedicated like recruitment strategy or a talent strategy. I think it's more like we've got a vacancy, so we need to fill it rather than thinking longer term. So I think it needs a refresh. I like the idea. I think I nicked this off of a coach. I can't remember who it was, of always on recruitment, meaning that you're always looking all the time. So one of the things that we've done so it's mainly in the first business in Manchester, is to almost try and create like a little black book of people who we think might be our kind of people. So they've got the technical skills and they've got the kind of the attitudes to come with us on a longer journey, but we haven't got a vacancy right now. So we've got like a black book of always on recruitment where we're constantly looking, and we'll always have a conversation with someone who comes up, not necessarily for something we've got now, but at least knowing that stuff. And knowing that those are the types of people that can come on, and we want them to know that we're looking for those kind of folks as well. We're not just like a transactional business who, we've got a vacancy and then you leave and then we just fill it again. I think we need to spend more probably everybody, especially in moulding as well, on the training side. Again, another thing I've noticed is that there doesn't seem to be much certainly in SME, I guess, where budgets are tight and it's all down to the opinion of that particular owner of that particular business, rather than like a corporate that might have these whole like huge strategies and HR departments and training budgets and things. So I think there's so much of a lot of the employees that I've spoken to as part of the acquisitions who just haven't had training for years. And it's not to say that they're like doing a bad job or whatever, but they could be doing so much more. And there are so many components of their jobs that they kind of understand just enough to get by, but they could be doing a lot more. But we just need to sort of, zoom out a little bit and think about that and be a bit more deliberate with what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there that I think, resonates. Like when I first went into the world of work, I was an apprentice, so I went into trades, right out of high school. I went to college for a year, then right out of high school, right out of there, went into apprenticeship. Is that something that in moulding, is that the path in usually, like a 3-year or 4-year apprenticeship, learn your trade, then you go on and, you're an engineer, you're up to your whatever, better salaries and all the rest of it. Is that how it works in the industry primarily?
Yeah, it's not a million miles away. Yeah, there's certain accreditations and certain things that you need to do to prove yourselves, and you get certificates along the way. So yeah, coming in, getting your hands dirty at a young age and having qualifications, you can still join the industry later and get the same accreditations as well. But yeah, the way you described it is not a million miles away.
Yeah, so I guess it's something that you have, or you and your team have, or will be looking at across your businesses. Getting apprentices right, like you say, right out of college is something you're trying to do.
So Dudley, the second business that we acquired 4 months ago, has done a really nice job. So we also do, alongside injection molding, we do tool making. So tool making is way more kind of involved technical skill, and the team there, the management team, are time-served apprentice toolmakers. So they've been through the journey of knowing how long it takes and the knowledge required to learn. And I've been really impressed. It was one of the things that attracted me to the acquisition, was that our tool room has got a team full of younger guys who have come through from the local colleges, and they've got their hands dirty on the shop floor, and they've learnt it on site. So we've got guys who are in their 30s who've got 15 or maybe 10, 12 years experience at Dudley Associates with us, where we've invested the time in those guys. And yeah, hopefully that will continue to pay off for the long term.
Yeah, really good. That seems like, even just hearing that, it seems like the way to go. It's such an asset to the business if you can, it solves a lot of problems, right? The cultural piece. It's also like the future proof in the business. People are probably been there that long, likely to stay there if they can keep progressing. Yeah, that's really cool. And I guess tied to the talent piece is you mentioned this at the start, is your kind of technology piece. So I know you mentioned in your LinkedIn post about certain systems being deployed. Talk to me about that for your businesses. What are you doing on the tech side?
So on the tech side at the moment, we're not doing much because we had the first acquisition that happened about 15, 16 months ago. And then the second one is 4 months. Now, I think we need to build our shop floor habits and processes in a non-tech fashion before we just throw tech at it. So the destination will be shop floor monitoring so that we can see that we're getting the right efficiency from our machines. It will also be a group ERP system so that we've got visibility across the group of our numbers and a clean customer experience and things. But we're investing a lot more time up front in learning the process flows of the business, ironing out the kinks, getting the team in the habit of doing the things, rather than just going, hey, look, here's this fancy bit of tech. It's going to solve all your problems. Yeah. We're spending more time getting the problems out in the open and then fixing them before we do that.
Yeah, and I guess you've seen the other side of it, right? Where you've worked in big, corporate employers who've got all of this figured out, like you mentioned, right? And are able to leverage technology to improve their margins or efficiencies and all the rest of it. Where you guys are, I actually should have asked that. So the scale of these businesses, talk to me a bit about headcount and I guess turnover for these businesses.
So they're both similar size in terms of turnover. They're both just under 3 million.
Okay.
In terms of headcount, one's got 20 and the other has got 27. So across the group, we've got 47 employees and the group revenue of just under 6 million.
Got it. So you're at that. I guess that's why you're focused where you're focused, right? Because you got to get to a certain point before you can take advantage of like technology. Is that kind of the way it goes? Yeah,
I think there's a few different aspects. Like I said before, the first thing for me is I just don't want to throw tech at something we don't understand. So you can't just come in as the new guy and just because you've been in the industry for years, you know this business better. And also, where they're smaller, you're quite exposed to people doing it a certain way. When you've got a team of 5 buyers, salespeople, accounting people, the kind of process is the catch-all. But when you're in a smaller company, I've had to learn this because I've come from big corporate, but in smaller, you're exposed to how one person may do it. So they've got their framework of how they do their job. But then there's still a lot of like the tribal knowledge of how that individual does it. And you're way more exposed to the individuals in these smaller companies. So again, there's no point in me assuming, hey, here's our new standard straight line process that's going to operate across all the businesses. Yeah, go on, crack on with that, guys. It just won't work. So I need to spend more time like I say, mapping out and learning how people are doing it and where the kinks are and where we can standardize and where we kind of have inherited some legacy stuff that we probably shouldn't be doing. So that's that's one component of it. And then the second bit is where we're early in acquisition. I'm not in the like 1%, 2% incremental gains phase where a piece of automation might improve the process by 1%. We're still in the like finding 5 and 10% problems where we're like, oh, we haven't done price increases for ages, or oh, look, if we did a tender for our raw materials, or why the hell are we running the shop floor process like that, or when was the last time we did a stock take? So we're still in the bigger, meatier, like putting in some more, like, let's say, accounting principles, shop floor principles, and getting, like I say, 5 and 10% gains. Whereas I think once those things are in place, not only is it the enabler for the tech, but then you can get your 1s and 2%. But I still think there's too much other good stuff that we can be shooting at right now, rather than jumping straight to spending money on tech that we don't really understand.
Yeah, 100%. That's what's so appealing about small business, right? Like, especially if you've got a couple of these businesses that you're, and then hopefully, more come into the Uncomplicated Group as well.
Mm-hmm.
You can find those levers, as you say, that are actually like a lot more impactful than, like you say, just chucking tech at something. So, yeah, you mentioned a couple of those. It'd be good to hear if you were going in and doing some of those big levers, like your price increases or your suppliers coming in. Just how much of an impact can that make to the top line or the bottom line of the business from what you've seen?
Yeah, so the first one hadn't really looked at price for a while. And during COVID, a lot of the raw material prices went up quite dramatically. And I think the rate of increase of our materials had gone up more sharply than our pricing. So it was one of the first things that I did when we took over, was to kind of normalize a lot of the pricing and work out which customers hadn't been looked at for ages, where we'd seen inflation. A lot of it hadn't even been noticed because we didn't have other processes in place, like month-end closes and stock takes and monthly management accounts and things. So, like you say, in SME, there's just like a world of different areas you can do it. And every single time you uncover one of these, firstly, I think, like, how the hell are we not doing this? But then immediately, half a second after, I've trained myself to be like, that's just upside for me then, isn't it? Because if we're not doing it and we've got to this level, imagine how much better we can be once we start like doing proper stuff. So yeah, pricing, we've probably about increased our profitability by about a third in Manchester just through pricing. And we're about to hopefully do a similar exercise. Going to give a tip off to my customers about that they got a price increase coming. So thanks for that. But yeah, similar thing where there's jobs that the business has taken on that over time, either the job doesn't run as smoothly as you might like, or the equipment price or the material price has seen inflation and we've not been able to pass that on to the customer, or not had like a strategy that gives us courage to actually go and do it. I think I've noticed a lot of the smaller companies are quite worried, like, we can't do that, we're going to lose the business, or this is the price they pay and stuff. I think I'm fortunate that I was trained back in corporate times to be a lot bolder with going after pricing, and also the salesmanship required to demonstrate the value that you're actually delivering. I think certainly both businesses of mine, on the technical side, they're fantastic. So the business has been born of someone's idea, an ex-tool maker, an ex-designer, who's decided that they want to have their own company and go self-employed. So these businesses have started like that, grown to a certain size because there's obviously a market for the service they offer. But both of them probably were a bit commercially naive, where they were born of a tool maker or a technical person who wanted to just have a machine shop. It doesn't mean they've ever had sales training, or they've ever looked at mapping the markets where they sell, or they've ever looked at margin analysis, or understood the value of doing a stock take. So, that's, while it sounds like, hey, yeah, pricing is really easy, we'll just come in and do it, and why you're not doing this, guys, I can totally see why it hasn't been done, because it isn't necessarily something that comes naturally to someone who's more of a technical mindset, and the salesmanship required to actually deliver the price increase in the right way, justify it, make sure it's a fair price increase as well, of course. And maintain the customer relationship.
Yeah, like that last part you talk about is pretty much my world these days, right? Being able to actually deliver from a sales point of view, that you understand the value to the customer, and that this price is absolutely it works, right? It works for you as a buyer.
Mhm.
Talk to me about what sales and marketing, or we just focus on sales first, is like in your industry. How do deals come about? Is it a sort of like account management type game over a longer term? Are you in competitive deals? Is it RFPs? What's it like?
A bit of a blend, really. So in tech markets, it's more of us doing business development, hunting out people who look like our existing customers. It's a somewhat commoditized area, so you can't just charge the price you want and steam in and be the savior of that customer. There are other sources where they can get this stuff. So it's a lot of business development and positioning yourselves as the go-to, that we do make it in the UK, that we've got a certain service level and certain KPIs that we'll hold ourselves to. So that's how we sell there. On Dudley, it's slightly different. It's more marketing focused, where we are quite spread across our markets. It's more difficult to be really, really focused on which types of customers we want to win. It's easy in construction industry because you know who they are, you know who the end user is. Whereas when you're effectively selling our machine molding as a service, because it's for them to then obviously use it. So we use a lot of pay-per-click. We do SEO. We do a lot of online marketing to try and draw attention to who we are and the services we offer, to then kind of drag them into our funnel and then try and convert them. So it's quite a different approach between the two companies.
And your background, did it lean more towards one than the other? Was it, or have you
Me personally,
well versed in both? Yeah.
I'm not really a marketing guy. I think I find it really interesting, and we've been speaking with marketing agencies recently about how we can do it. We've spent at the beginning of these acquisitions, the priority has been to get these fundamentals in place around the finance and the operations and stuff, and not too much sales focus, because I don't want to push a load of new customers to a business that I don't think's optimized. So we hadn't done anything for a while, and we won't in the newer one as well. But we're just starting to think about those things now. So my background is I was like a business development manager for years. So I'm kind of used to mapping the market, looking at who the ideal prospects are, looking at why they should care about me ringing them as opposed to one of our competitors, and then getting in the car or getting on a plane and going and finding out what it is about their process or whatever that hopefully we can fix. So that's my background. On the marketing side, I've got a high level, really overly simplistic understanding. So I think I've got some, I'm probably going to be that annoying customer who asks loads of really irritating questions once we get involved with the marketing agencies.
Yeah, I'm the same. Once you've been in sales, you sort of, there's a kind of sales and marketing. I'll not say too much on this, but there's a kind of sales and marketing balance, shall we say, or exchange, shall we say, right? Sales guys kind of see marketing as just doing fancy things on websites perhaps, and the sales guy is the guy that makes all the money. But I'm sure marketing have got the other, they view it as like these guys are just boneheads out there, but it's a really important component, especially as you look to grow the group, right? With your every acquisition you take on, and you want to improve it operationally, but you also want to improve how much business it's bringing in, and how many customers you're looking after, and how many people you can employ, and all that starts with good sales and marketing sort of alignment, right? So in terms of your goals, your bigger goals for the group, talk a bit about where you're trying to get this thing to.
I haven't got like a number as such. I've got a few ego numbers that I never tell anyone, but that's just to make me feel good about like, hey, these would be really cool things to do. But yeah, I haven't got a written down, we must get to this by this thing. What I'd really like is a group of, say, 3 or 4 companies that look after each other from a technological perspective, capacity, design, maybe some sourcing stuff where you can get better prices because you're in a group, and to grow that way. And then maybe in the future at some point consider rolling that up and then maybe selling it, hopefully for more than I paid for it. That's the whole point of, buy 4 small companies, bash them together, get one big company, and hopefully sell it on. But that's such a long, like far away vision that I haven't really got any like tangible steps or anything that we must do this by this time. I'm not really thinking about that at the moment. It's putting in these fundamentals to be like an enabler for growth for these companies, so that when we do win new business, we know we can bring it on, and we can bring it on well, and we'll do it well. We won't let the customers down. We'll retain as much margin as we think we're going to get when we originally quote the job, and then go that way. So I think it's like a year to 2 years of, let's call it like cleanup, where you're getting your operational engine so that you can win new customers, you can win the right type of customers, you can push it through the factory, give great service, retain the business, and it keeps going. So on acquisition one, we're a year and a third, I guess, something like that, into that journey. So we're just starting now to think about how we win our business, how we map our markets, the types of trade shows we should be attending, what our financial goals should be for the next 3 years, what we actually think genuinely is achievable. In Dudley, we're a bit earlier in that. So like I said, I've only had the business for 4 months. We're just starting to look at our current marketing spend and where bits of it are delivering and bits of it aren't. We're also looking at who we want to be as a business. I think we've, like a lot of companies, we're probably a bit guilty of trying to be all things to all men. We'll take any revenue. And I think we need to take a step back and think about this particular customers or specific customers here where we're probably making more money and giving them a much better service because they're the type of customers that we should be serving, rather than just like entering into every RFQ and saying yes to every lead. I think it'd be better to hone in on 1 or 2 key markets where we suit what they want and we're very good at it. And then it makes it a damn sight easier to grow, rather than trying to, half-ass across 15 different market segments.
Yeah, it sounds to me like your Dudley business is a little bit more on the bespoke side. Like it's, which is the reason it's successful, I guess, at the same time, right? Because you have that capability. But if what I'm hearing you, it's like if you can try and make it a more repeatable, like the same sort of orders coming in, same use cases, the same customer profile, it allows you to get better operationally, but also to scale on the customer side. Would that be fair?
Yeah, there's knowledge in our team's heads around solving certain problems, and we will solve those problems better than others. So I've noticed at the moment that some of our projects that seem to have gone the best are customers in the electronics industry. So we do a lot of casings and coverings and things. And there must be a reason we've won that business over the 20 years that the business has been around. And I think it's because in the heads of the design team and the tool making team, we're offering something slightly different to the competition, and then the customers picking us. So we just need to do more of that, rather than having all this great knowledge where we can really help customer A solve this problem that they're dying to solve and everyone else hasn't been able to solve it. But if we're diluting our time across customer B, C, D, which is like generic stuff or commodity stuff or stuff that's not our wheelhouse, some like amazing automotive supplier down the road, but we're throwing all our time at auto, like why would we do that if we're brilliant in electronics?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense when you take a step back and you think about it like that, just from a I guess first principles point of view, right? Where are we the best at? Where are we really good? And what is that market? So, Steve, I want to change gears a little bit. I want to zoom out and look more at the UK. Obviously, you've sounds like you've been someone that's done business in kind of lots of different areas, not just the UK, and you probably could go and be successful in a bunch of different countries. Why are you building in the UK? What's kept you here?
I don't really have a good answer for that one, I'm afraid. I really do prefer the sunshine, and I've always wanted to live abroad, funnily enough. So you got me wondering, why am I sat here? Maybe I should go and pack my bags. Like I say, I have actually always wanted to live abroad, and I think at some point I would quite like to. I've got a bit of a vision of me once the businesses, I can be a bit more detached from them, being able to live abroad and then run them from afar with management teams in place where everyone knows what we expect and how to run it. But that's way more of a long-term thing. I think other than the obvious answer that I'm from the UK, I know the industries where I operate. I know a lot of the suppliers in the industry where I've acquired, and the ways of working. I think it's a bit of a lame answer, but I think it's the honest answer, that this is just what I know. And I've spent a lot of time learning the industry and learning, particularly in the last few years from an acquisition perspective, the profile of the acquisitions that are here and the size of the business and the way they're run, the profile of the owners that I can then target potentially to get more work. So yeah, it's like an investment. I've invested a lot of time and energy into what I'm pursuing here. So it wouldn't really make sense at this stage to do anything different.
Yeah, that is it. It makes a lot of sense if you think about that. You've got basically those are like your assets. They're kind of like your starting blocks that you're building from, right? It's not a clean start, is what I'm trying to say. What's your view on the UK long term? Are you bullish? I know everybody, we love a moan over here about things that are going wrong, or politics, or someone should have done this or someone should have done that. What's your view long term on the UK? Are you still bullish in terms of what we can do as a country?
Yeah, I think I flip flop on this one. I have days where it's like, look at all this new changes in government and tax and all these things, and you think, like, when is this ever going to hit my pocket? How is this? Am I working this hard to not get more coming into your pocket despite building something? And then there's other days where you think, oh, there's a whole repatriation thing. It's an upside because we've managed to get to this level despite not running these businesses the way that I would certainly like to. Yeah, I still think long term. I think I think from a manufacturing perspective, we're the 9th largest manufacturer in the world still, despite all the, like you say, like, we like a moan and things, but despite all of the noise around declining UK manufacture, and it is true that there does need to be more investment. There does need to be more in terms of training. And as an industry, we need to adopt things like automation. But we're still a big player globally. I think it's number 9. Maybe someone will quote me afterwards and tell me that's correct. So it's not like this is like a tiny thing where everyone's shutting up shop and it's a declining sector and there's no future for it. I don't believe that to be the case at all.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. Well, look, Steve, we're coming towards the end. I want to give you a bit of a platform to promote anything you want to promote, or shill anything you want to shill, or if there's any other things that you want to bring up. The floor is yours.
I think I'll close out by speaking very briefly about the acquisition side and a bit more about what we're trying to do. So like I said, there's these in injection molding, there's this like 12 to 1400 molding companies in the UK. A significant portion of those are owned by people who are baby boomers, like aged, let's say 55 to 65. And these businesses are too small to have a huge, say, succession plan or talent planning like we spoke about earlier. So when these folks come to look to retire, they need to offload the business somewhere. And there's not that many places or not that many people who are actually able to take these things over and buy them. A lot of the businesses are too small for a corporate. The corporates want 10 million revenue, 20 million revenue, whatever, not someone who runs their local shop with 2 million revenue. It's given them a great life. It's a great business, but it's not acquirable by those guys. But if we don't have more people come into the industry and look to acquire these businesses and learn the skills, then potentially we might lose like 20 to 30% of our SMEs because people will be forced to close. Because I think there's more people selling or who are going to come of age where they look to sell than there are buyers or credible buyers coming into the market. And that'd be a tremendous shame for UK manufacturing if we do. And I'm not just talking about molding, it's the same story in all parts of UK manufacture, where there's a lot of knowledge is going to disappear out of the industry. We might lose business. The volume might go out of the UK if we can't serve it here. It'd be a real shame to lose the volume we've got. So I would urge people to start to look at these things and get clued up on acquisitions if it's something that you want to do. For me, it's been a really cool way out of my previous corporate job that I did for years. It's a damn sight harder work than I realized, but it's also a lot more fun. And it's a journey where you get to like choose where you go. But think about it as there's this wave is coming of people, and we should do something about it. Otherwise, it'll be a tremendous shame if we just sit back and then in 20 years, all of our manufacturing's gone, the work's gone abroad, loads of people have lost their jobs, loads of people's legacies have disappeared. I think that'd be a tremendous shame.
Yeah, I can't agree more, honestly. Okay, and where if people are interested, where should they go to have a chat with you and find you and connect?
Best place would be LinkedIn, Steve Lawrence, and my tagline is building a group of injection molding businesses.
There you go. Love it. Well, listen, Steve, really appreciate you coming on. You've been a great guest. Hopefully we can get you back in the future at some point and dive into some more of those topics. But yeah, really appreciate your time. Thanks, mate.
Thank you. Cheers.